You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWords Nerds. Now, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I've been very sick. I got very sick after a family gathering, and I've been sick for several days. And it turns out when you are sick and you are a parent, you still have to yell at your kids all the time. And so my voice is just completely shot. This week, I actually did an interview with a really awesome real estate investor named Cassidy Melhorn. Now, you might not know about Cassidy. He's not one of these people that's famous on the REI kind of guru scene or anything, but he's a really fascinating person with a really fascinating background. Actually got to start essentially flipping all sorts of random stuff like calculators and used cars. And he's kind of parlayed that into this really high profit investing business down in Knoxville, Tennessee. And he's just crushing it. And this is a really good example of something that I'm trying to do more of, which is just interview these really interesting people that are out there in the investing space that don't get a lot of publicity. They're not out there promoting a course. You know, he's not promoting, a product. He is making his money investing and really taking the time to dig in with those people and find out what's working for them and find out the mental models and the habits and strategies that they use has been really, really valuable to me. And I think it's going to be really, really valuable to you. So without further ado, let me pass you on to my interview with Cassidy Melhorn from Vol Homes in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I will catch up with you after the interview. All right, everybody, it's Daniel Barrett here, and I am with Cassidy Melhorn from Vol Homes down in Knoxville, Tennessee. Cassidy, how are you, man?
How's it going, man? Doing good.
Oh, I'm doing all right, man. You can hear in my voice that I'm a little raspier. We were talking before the recording, and I was saying this is my Lou Reed voice, so hopefully it comes off as cool and grizzled rather than just annoying and nasally.
Yeah, I actually think it sounds awesome. I mean, I would play guitar for you.
All right. Well, that's cool, man. Do you play guitar? Are you like a musical dude?
Well, we played there for a little while. It was a lot of fun, but mostly nowadays it's just just fooling around, practicing a little bit and that type of thing.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I love that stuff. I think it keeps you young, as they say, which is cool. But
it also lets you be aware of that you're getting old, which is why I don't do it anymore.
You age very rapidly when you ever attempt to play music in front of other people. That's very, very true. That's funny. So, well, it's funny, man, because when I called you, you said you're actually out. Are you out at a house now, looking at a house for some rehabs? Like, what are you actually up to right this moment?
Well, I stopped by. I've got a project going on, and I always kind of like to, sneak by there and just see how things are going. They got pictures tomorrow, so the day before the pictures, of course, it's a pretty late evening for those guys. But I just poked my head in there. But it looks nice. It's a West Knoxville house. This one was lead from a bandit sign. It was an older lady. She was looking to move to Florida, kind of downsize. The house obviously needed quite a bit of repairs. Yeah, so it looks great now. We've done. I'm actually driving back in front of it now. It's gorgeous. It's what everybody wants, basically. It's a brick split 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,200 square foot with a garage, attached garage, 70s build. A lot of them are around this area. It's a good one.
Yeah. So why don't you break down for people, what kind of investing are you doing at Vol Homes? Are you wholesaling? I know you're rehabbing. So what's your kind of combination look like?
It's changed, Dan. And I really just kind of evolve with whatever I think is the best kind of fit. I started out rehabbing. It was 2013. So, 5-6 years ago. And at the time I was in college and, I've always been a hustler, just, through and through. All my friends, they kind of describe me as that type of guy. My dad's he's been a car dealer my whole life. So I learned from a car salesman. And,
can you talk a little bit about what is that like growing up with a car dealer as a dad?
At the time, it was like we were going to these auctions, and we were. He worked a lot. Obviously, he's a business owner, and at the time, it was kind of like boring. We were looking at cars, and he was saying, here's what you want to look for, and you always want to point out things like this to sellers. However, when you're selling, you want to let them point those things out. You don't want to point them out yourself, As I'm getting older, and obviously as I've started investing in real estate, and my dad grew up with rental properties and buying land, and not really as a full-time thing, but it was more as part of the hustle. It was part of what he does and what I do. And I learned kind of in hindsight, it was like, man, this is almost like the perfect storm it was like I've been training my whole life to do what it is that I'm doing now and what it is that I love. I mean, I obviously got those experiences growing up, looking and evaluating, different types of investments and physical investments at that. And in college, I had went to decided to be an engineer, and I wanted to be an engineer. And so went to engineering school, and I was like, wow, this is really hard. There's no way I can have a job. And this is what a lot of people that I talk to really, I guess, like to hear about. And it's true. And a lot of the people that have been with me along the way, they know it's true. But, being broke in college, I was trying to figure out how in the world am I going to go to, school with the level of effort that I had to put in, which was probably greater than the average level of effort of another, just your average engineering student. It didn't come as naturally to me as I think it did for a lot of them. And, as another part of my training was just learning how to grind and work hard consistently every day at a goal. And, but I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to make money? How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to, buy books and all these other things and go to school? Well, we had to buy these $150 graphing calculators for engineering school. And so, I got on a kind of a classifieds website, and there was a guy that had one for sale on there, and it was $40, something like that. Well, I met him and bought it for $20, and he's like, "Hey, I got another one here. If you want it, that I'll sell you for $20. It's my girlfriend's." And I was like, "Well, I don't know too." And then it hit me. I was like, "I don't need to." And at that moment, I realized, well, they sell for like $60 used. If I buy that one and then sell it for $60, then I got mine for free, and that type of thing. So what I learned was in this off season, when it's like spring break time or whatever, there's just a boatload of college students who are wanting to go on spring break, who are just as broke as me. And the only thing that got of any value is this calculator. So I would always buy 50 or 100 calculators and then sell them on eBay immediately. And that's how I made it through college. That's how I paid my rent. It kind of evolved from, as I said, I played music earlier. It evolved from, $20 calculators. Then I would buy and sell guitars and music equipment, and then cars, little cheap, crappy cars. I would buy and sell them. And so I built up, not a whole lot of money, but it was enough money to kind of, I guess, spark my interest in investing. And the week before I graduated, and I had kind of been, reading a lot of online, reading a lot of blogs, had been talking to a lot of people who had, done some real estate investing and that type of thing. And I was really just wanting to buy a house, but I knew that I would want to be able to buy it the same way that I bought everything else, which was, I wanted to buy it to where when I decided to sell it, I could, obviously make a profit on it, and ended up getting a little foreclosure in close to where I'm at actually now in West Knoxville, and paid, I think, $51,000. Had a little bit of, obviously needed some updating, but it also kind of, the basement was, needed some, finishing and, some stuff like that going on. So we bought it for, I think I bought it for 51. I used the 203K loan, which was very difficult now that I buy them using, other easier ways to buy them. But, and lived there a few years. I think whenever I evaluated that house, I evaluated like 20,000 in rehab and, sell it for 1.9. And, I ended up putting 30 in rehab, and I sold it for 159. So, I lived in it a couple years, but it was really a pretty good deal. But while I was living there, we started putting out the signs that say "We buy houses." I put out my signs that says "Cass buys houses" or "Vol buys houses," and putting up ads on kind of classified sites and that type of thing. And I had probably $8,000, $10,000, literally, to invest with. I knew a gentleman that he was an REO agent in the area, and we were kind of acquaintances. He knew some of the guys that I played in the band with, and at the time had the Vol Homes website. It was producing absolutely nothing, but that's all that I had to pitch this guy with, And so, I call him and I talk to him like, yeah, I've got this website, and this is probably 4 years ago. Got this website, Vol Homes. I'm bringing in, all these leads, and I need somebody to buy them with. And he's like, oh, well, I'll buy them. So, and he had a lot of the funds that was necessary, and so we were pretty much off to the races. Well, the first flip, purely investment house that I bought, that I wasn't living in, it was bought it for $8,000. It was on a rough side of town, needed everything. We sold it for 14. Second one was $8,000, sold it for 12. Third one was $70,000 and sold it for 120. So, and didn't do anything to it. And so it was that kind of got me up and going, and to where I, had the funds that I needed, to where we just started splitting all these deals. And so it was wholesaling, but it was not necessarily wholesaling in the, I think, context that a lot of people think about wholesaling now, which is assignment deals. This was actually a double close, and, or close and then remarket it, that type of thing. And we did probably over three or 4 year period, we did probably 100 houses, anywhere from, literally, we bought a house one time, for $2,000 and sold it for $11,000 the next day. So anywhere from $2,000 up to, we bought one for $150 and held it 2 weeks and sold it for $265. And all we did was clean it out.
Are you an investor who wants to dominate your local market? Do you want more leads and deals online? Then download your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint, absolutely free, at www.adwordsnerds.com/gift. What are you waiting for? Go to www.adwordsnerds.com/gift right now to get your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint.
I think the thing that is so fascinating to me about your background is all the stuff you were doing before you were investing, which is kind of just investing, but like in other things, right? I mean, you're essentially investing in like calculators and cars, and it's essentially the same business model, right? It's arbitrage. So it doesn't strike me as something that's super common. So how do you think that background, like what skills or mindsets or just kind of ways of viewing the world did that background give you that helps you today when you're not talking about flipping calculators, you're talking about flipping homes, right? How did that stuff affect you and the way that you run your business now?
First of all, it allowed me to identify motivated sellers, like within 2 questions. I don't spend a lot of time on my calls. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm short, or I'm certainly not abrasive, although there's a lot of people that would argue me on that one. But whenever I talk to a seller, I try to understand where they're coming from, build rapport, right? But then I want to know, like, what's the address? How much you looking to get for it? Why are you selling it? How much do you owe on it? Let's say those 3 or 4 questions. I can pretty much determine whether it's going to be something that I'm interested in pursuing or not. And I think that I kind of learned that through having invested in these multiple little miscellaneous things over time, because you talk to so many people, you know what I mean? And I guess there's just an awareness there of, this sounds like, I think it's just recognizable. The person, it's more, and I tell people this all the time, it's more about the seller than it is about the house. You know what I mean? I don't have to like the house in order to make $50,000 on it.
Right.
I don't even have to see it for that matter. But if the seller, if I can tell that they're a motivated seller and it's going to be a win-win situation for us, then that is where my ears perk up.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because no matter how great the property is, if that person's not motivated to sell it to you at less than market value, there's no room for you to really make a profit on it, right?
Right. So, other than, maybe pivoting in my spiel, if you will, to them and redirecting onto, say, having them list it with an agent that, I may be friends with or something like that. I know that it's not, if it's something that I think will sell to a retail type buyer, then I may pivot to that. But otherwise, if it's not going to sell and I can't buy it, I'm getting off the phone. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to get back working on something that I know is going to put money in my pocket.
You have such an interesting background. You're out there. You're doing deals right now. You know, you're out in front of a deal right now. So for you right now, what as you kind of look out, you know, like you said, you've been doing this since 2013 or so. How's the market changed around you since then, and how has your business changed since then?
When we first and when I say you got to remember, whenever I first started investing, I had a partner. Now, I don't. You know, it's just me. So when I say that's why I'm saying that. But when we first started, there were a lot more foreclosures and things of that nature that were kind of out there floating around. There were a lot more, I think, seasoned investors that were buying consistently, and wholesaling was easy. I mean, there was a lot of people that were out here doing them, flipping them, who had been doing it a while because it had been easy a while. You know, with the supply, especially 2 years ago, the supply in this market kind of, I'm not going to say drying up, but it certainly, the supply shrank significantly. I think that put some of the old school guys maybe in a position to where a lot of those deals weren't as attainable, or they were already gobbled up before that, they could get a chance to buy them. So I think now it seems like I'm seeing a lot more new investors that are ready to get a flip. And on one hand, that's great. On the other hand, it's more difficult to wholesale because I know how it is, starting out. I mean, it's getting the funding together, as well as just the lack of experience. I think I would love to go back and buy some of the deals that I walked away from when I first started. Right now, I would love to go back and buy some of those deals for what I could have bought them for then. I would buy some of the deals that I sold 2 years ago from myself for what I sold them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if you can figure out how to sell it to yourself, you've got a pretty awesome business model there, I got to say. Well, so, I mean, let's kind of turn that into something constructive, right? So it's like, if you're running into one of these like really new investors coming on the scene right now, what piece of advice would you give them to help them kind of make their way in this kind of current market?
I would tell a new investor the same thing that I've learned from experience and that I would have told myself. You've got to start somewhere. I can talk myself out of any deal that I want to. I can find things that are just too much work, or, I don't know how to solve that problem. But in order to become an investor, I've got to pull a trigger on something, even if it's not the best one, even if it's not a home run. If I buy it at a price to where even if I'm close on the margin I'm trying to make, I'll still walk away with something. And even more valuable than that check at the closing table is that experience from actually having done the first deal, because with that comes the confidence to do more deals. I think a lot of people, they kind of psych themselves out. They get really excited about investing and become overwhelmed because it is, relatively difficult to get going, and then maybe throw in the towel before ever really giving it a shot to take hold. I mean, real estate investing has changed my life. I graduated college. I went to work as an engineer, what I thought was my dream job. And we had flipped, a couple of the small houses before I had started. And a year and a half in, I'm realizing, this engineering job, it kind of accentuates all of my bad qualities and doesn't make room for my creativity. There's really not as much room for that creativity in the job that I was working. So here I am. I'm working in a spot where I'm accentuating my bad qualities, and my good qualities are kind of, handcuffed. And I was making, like, for instance, I think it was February before last. I left the engineering job approximately 2 years ago. So it was a February before last. I made more money doing, real estate investing in Knoxville than I would have made that entire year with my engineering salary. And, recognizing that was like, what am I doing? Why am I wasting time? There's that fear there of letting go of what's good in pursuit of what's great. And, I thought a lot about that, and eventually an opportunity kind of came along that allowed me to exit the engineering career, in good graces, and do investing full time. And I took it, and it was a great decision. I mean, I've done over 150 houses since I started. I've kind of switched from doing wholesales to primarily doing renovations. And part of that was I'm looking, I'm doing I think 2 years ago I did 48 deals or something like that. I think the average profit was right around 5,000 per deal. And seeing what has happened in the market with the lack of supply, the prices have been increasing. I think it was roughly 10% the year before last, and maybe another 5% past year. And looking back at some of those deals, it's like, man, there was a lot of meat there on the bone, and there are not as many deals that are coming along. And so, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, I'm saying that in a straight up way. There's a limited supply right now. And so I really wanted to increase my profit per deal and try to maintain the same amount of deals annually. And I've come close to doing that. I think last year I did like 38 houses. So it's almost at that 48 mark, but the profit per deal has increased substantially. I think right now the average profit per deal is right around 35,000.
Wow. That's awesome. That's your average?
Yeah, that's the average on the rehab. Those are obviously not wholesales, but they've ranged from, I took a big hit on, when I use several different sources. I've got about 5, kind of lead devices from, volhomes.com to, the We Buy Houses signs to going to foreclosure auctions, online auctions, and foreclosures, listed foreclosures. So I've got my iron in several fires, and a couple have been phenomenal. A couple, like for instance, one that we just listed, it's actually on the market, I think 3 or 4 days now, in Maryville, Tennessee, which is effectively where the Knoxville airport is located. It's kind of a suburb of Knoxville, but that deal was I purchased for, I think, $88,000, We put in about 50 or 60, and we listed it for $319, and it'll sell for, close to that. But that's obviously going to be a home run, in my opinion. But where I was going with that is, on the bad side of it, going to auctions, you learn so many different things, trying all these different methods in investing and learning new things, learning new niches, that, I bought a property on the courthouse steps. I think $60,000. It was a $200,000 condo. I was like, yes. Whenever I walked away from that auction, it was like, I was so happy. And this was on a Wednesday. Well, a guy called me from a bank this is Friday, literally closed, 5:00 probably. Had the whole weekend ahead of me. And this guy was like, hey, did you purchase blah, blah, blah condo? And I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, good. He was like, did you know that we hold the first mortgage on it? And I was like, what? And it turns out I had purchased the second mortgage on the condo, and
wow.
had to reconcile the first mortgage. So what I thought initially was a home run turned out to be thank God I broke even type of scenario.
Oh my God.
But it's all great experience, man. I wouldn't trade what I do for any job in the world. It's truly been a blessing.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, man. It's one of those industries where, man, you sure learn a lot very quickly just by doing it. You know what I mean? And there's no replacement for that. Well, hey man, so listen, if people want to check you out or check out your website or the investing that you're doing, where do they find you online?
Well, you can go to volhomes.com. Check us out there. We've also got Facebook page, Vol Homes, Twitter. You can get us on LinkedIn. We're on all the social media.
Yeah, just so people know, it's spelled VOL Homes, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll put all those links in the show notes. So we'll link to Cassidy's stuff all over the place. Hey man, I gotta say this was a really, I know you said in the beginning you didn't think we were going to fill the whole time. It was a really fascinating conversation. I really want to say thank you for jumping on the podcast and taking this time to talk about your business with me. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me, and I'd like to thank your listeners, and it was a good experience.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. And everybody, like I said, if you want to check out Cassidy's stuff, we're going to link everywhere on the show notes. So you can come check that out at adwordsnerds.com/podcast. Cassidy, have an awesome rest of your day, man. I hope the rehab goes well and those pictures come out awesome. And I'll be talking to you very soon.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
All right. Cheers. All right, everyone, that's it for my interview with Cassidy Melhorn. I hope you got a bunch of value out of that. I know I did. It's a really, really interesting dude, and gave me an opportunity to let someone else talk and rest my voice a little bit, so I appreciate him very much for that. Like I said, if you want to catch up with Cassidy, you can check out all the links we talked about on this week's episode at our show notes, which are at adwordsnerds.com/podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode and all our other episodes. And look, if you are not in our free Facebook group, the REI Marketing Nerds Facebook group, you are missing out. I am in there every week doing free trainings, sharing data, talking about what's working for our clients. And it's a really, really valuable place to share strategies and tips with other investors. And you can find that group at adwordsnerds.com/group. That'll take you right to the Facebook group. It's adwordsnerds.com/group, or you can just go on Facebook and search for REI Marketing Nerds. and you'll find it. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode. As always, guys, I hope you're having an awesome rest of your day. I will talk to you next week. And thank you so much for taking out the time to listen to this podcast every week. It means the world to me. And I hope I'm delivering some value into your life by doing this. And that's it. I'm going to go rest my voice. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.